This book is 10 times better than anything Donna Tartt has ever written or ever will. If y'all are not done with me yet, y'all are gonna be so done with this next recommendation, and that is Tomorrow and Tomorrow. And tomorrow. What up, my channel? Welcome to Jessie on YouTube. God, it is so weird to say that. And in today's video, I will And in today's video, I will be providing alternatives to some very popular and very racist books. I'm really excited about filming this video, and this is going to be a continuation of this kind of series that I started a few months ago where I talk about alternatives, or where I talk about problematic books that I have enjoyed in the past. So I've got 11 books on this list here. These are books that are some of the best-selling books of all times. These are books that are still very much beloved on BookTube, BookTok, Bookstagram, all of that. And a lot of times what makes it difficult for us to move past these books is that we have nothing to replace them with. Now, I do want to emphasize that this video is going to focus the majority on Black authors, as this is Black American History Month and I am hosting Blackathon for the 5th time. These books are mainly books that have racist undertones, problematic depiction of race, things like that. However, not all of them do. For example, there are some homotransphobic books on this list that I'm going to be giving y'all alternatives to, and some of the alternatives are not by Black authors, but they are by non-Black trans authors or Asian authors, etc. So I'm really excited about this. I wish I could have put all of that in the title, but I could not. The majority of this video is going to focus on Black authors, and without further ado, let us get into the video. The first two books that I'm going to be talking about are The Handmaid's Tale and The Power by Naomi Alderman. Now, these books are part of this literary trend that's going on where there's like a gender apocalypse of some sort. It's either a gender apocalypse or it's a dystopian world where women in particular are even more oppressed than they are in today's society, and these books serve to kind of warn us about what's going to happen if we don't get our shit together as a planet. And the concept of these books is amazing. I absolutely want to love these kind of gender apocalyptic narratives, but in my experience, having read about 6 of them, they are almost always trans exclusive or white feminist, meaning that the feminism in them focuses on issues affecting white women, centering white women, and literally no other women on the planet kind of matter or exist within these narratives, aren't incorporated into the world building, things like that. And so two of the most popular books within this genre are The Handmaid's Tale and The Power, both of them unfortunately who are guilty of doing the same thing. The Power in particular, both of them have some themes within them that I felt, having read them, were anti-Black. Why are you snoring so loudly enough? I hate it. Okay, I'm sorry if you hear snoring in the background. I have an elderly, kind of heavy-set dog, and she has chosen, no, she heavy-set. She thick, and you know she thick. She's decided to sing the song of her people, which is snoring. Buzzwords for these books are dystopian, feminism, and patriarchy. I put Vaseline on my hands. It was a mistake. These are the books that I'm going to be recommending as alternatives to The Handmaid's Tale and The Power. The first one is one of the first books that I read this year in 2023. I read it as part of a reading vlog. It's going to be linked down below, and it is none other than Moths by Jane Hennigan. This is by a white author, but I am 90% certain that this author is trans. Please correct me if I'm wrong. There's not like a whole lot about them online. This is the best gender apocalyptic story that I have ever read. It is set in the future where men have been infected by these moths that were found in a cave, and these moths go out and they carry these toxic threads that turn 50% of men into just really violent monsters, and for their own protection and for the protection of women, they are kept in these dust-free facilities where women have power over them. One of the things I loved about this book is we are following a 70-year-old protagonist who is basically kind of in charge charge of one of these facilities, for lack of better words, and I love books that have elder protagonists in them. We just don't see them enough. The social commentary was amazing. It kind of corrected a lot of those issues that I see in books of this type, and so this is one of my strongest recommendations. But the strongest one that I have is going to be The Memory Librarian by none other than Janelle Monáe. So y'all will probably know Janelle Monáe as an incredible singer, songwriter, musician, rapper, just all the things she is. I started listening to her in 2010 and she blew my mind. Janelle Monáe is non-binary, trans, and to my knowledge uses both she and they pronouns. The Memory Librarian is a collage of stories that are all based off of her album Dirty Computer. And within The Memory Librarian, we are following this semi-AI who is kind of in charge with surveilling the city. There's a lot of commentary on state surveillance, and this society basically consumes the memories of others, and that's her job. But these memories are essentially currency. They can be controlled and erased. And this book follows what happens when those who are oppressed start to fight back. There is a really incredible sapphic romance. I absolutely loved the supporting cast. They felt so real. Highly recommend the audiobook. The voice of the narrator is just phenomenal. And it is some truly incredible writing. And if you're looking for a series that explores these themes, look no further than The Girls of Paper and Fire by Natasha Mian. I am so excited to be recommending these books. These were one of the first series that I fell in love with when I started on BookTube, and they do not contain a gender apocalypse, but they do follow these girls who are known as paper girls. They are taken from their families into the palace, and they are kind of forced to serve the demon king. 3 different types of casts within this world. There are the humans, there are people that are semi-demon, and then there are full-blooded demons within this world. And this book is about what happens when these girls start to fight back. So if you are looking for a really fantastic sapphic YA series by an Asian author that explores the theme of women fighting back, girls fighting back against the patriarchy, then look no further than this one. Now we gotta talk about Serpent and Dove. Those of you who are OG fans of this channel, who were following me back when I was Bowties and Books,
which I just changed my channel name yesterday, so I don't know why I'm acting like it happened 1,000 years ago.
The very first video that I ever did where I was ranting about a book was Serpent and Dove. And I upset a lot of people by criticizing the way that Coco, the black character, was depicted within the story, from everything down to her use, where she was in the story, and her name. A really fantastic alternative recommendation to this series, which has buzzwords of hate to love, witches, and the patriarchy. Look no further than Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. So this is the debut book of Alexis Henderson, who's one of my favorite authors now. All right, Jacket wants to hear about this book. So essentially, Year of the Witching is from a black author. This is her debut, and we are following a girl who is basically a part of this cult where the prophet's word is the law, and she's got this little entanglement with the prophet's son, and it's about what happens when she decides to resist, and the fantastical element is amazing. It is every bit as atmospheric as Serpent and Dove is, and I think that's why people fell in love so hard with Serpent and Dove and we're willing to overlook its problems. I also found that the feminist aspect of Serpent and Dove was lacking, especially in its scope, and it's not this way in Year of the Witching. Now, my biggest critique of Year of the Witching was the ending, which in my opinion is absolute garbage. But even so, I still recommend this book. I still think about it all the time, and despite that, it still is one of my favorite books of all time. Now we have the Goldfinch Goldfinch and the Secret History by none other than Donna Tartt. I say this every single time I talk about Donna Tartt and the Goldfinch. There is an Instagram highlight on my page. My Instagram is changed from bowtiesandbooks to Jessie on YouTube _. There's an Instagram highlight titled Awful Books where I go into details. I've got receipts, I've got, you know, screenshots of the text, and I explain in detail all of the racism and issues within the Goldfinch that I saw. Now, since then, Asian reviewers have come up and spoken out about the anti-Asian sentiment in the Goldfinch, which I missed when I read it. And basically, Donna Tartt is my most hated author, period. I think it is absolutely repugnant that she is continued to be boosted and recommended by booktubers and literary reviewers who know damn well of the criticisms against her. And a large part of this is because we have such a love affair with dark academia. It's really interesting because people within the book community are willing to be allies when it comes to racism in science fiction and fantasy. When it comes to problematic authors in dark academia, booktubers are more than willing, sorry Jack, to look the other way. And it really, really frustrates me. So if you are one of those people that is continuing to recommend the Goldfinch, I don't know why I can't say this word, and The Secret History, please start putting content warnings on your recommendations. All you have to do is say, hey, reviewers of color have spoken up about issues within this text that affect them negatively. It's really not that hard to do. It's really not that hard to just be a decent person. And that's all I'm gonna say about that. So I also have a video, one of my first Waste My Time videos, which is gonna be linked down below, where I do talk about the Goldfinch and my issues with it, but I'm not gonna go into them in this video. And it's specifically because I hate talking about these books because the Goldfinch in particular is like the book, the most racist text that I've read that hurt me the most. I was left feeling so bad about myself after reading Donna Tartt's work, and I will simply never forgive the way that she depicted Black people, the way that she depicted Latinos, the way that she depicted immigrants, and that's just like the very, very tip of the iceberg in her work. If you are looking for some alternatives to Donna Tartt's work, some of the buzzwords for these books are museums, art, history, literary fiction, and dark academia. These are the replacement recommendations that I have. Now, these books are not being recommended because they are carbon copies of the plot of Secret History and the Goldfinch. They are recommended because they deal with those very same topics, those buzzwords, as are present in Donna Tartt's text, but they deal with it through the lens and perspectives of trans and Black authors, which is very, very important. It's important to look at how marginalized authors are writing within similar genres and with similar concepts. Now, the first book I'm going to recommend is by a white trans author, and that is none other than A Lesson in Vengeance by Victoria Lee. Now, those of you who know this book know that this does not resemble the plot of either of Tartt's books, but it is one of my favorite dark academic stories. Again, it is an imperfect book. It is one of those books that is imperfect, but I still gave 5 stars. I mean, look at how heavily I tabbed this book. This book lives rent-free in my head and in my heart, and it is a dark academic story about this girl with a past who goes to this, I think it actually is an all-girls academy, I'm not sure, and she gets sucked into the world of Ellis Haley, who is this charismatic, wealthy, kind of distant, you know, masculine of center girl. With her and Ellis Haley, they start this little obsession with witches and are obsessed about the idea of becoming witches themselves. And Donna Tartt is really well beloved in part for her atmosphere and the way that she writes dark academia. And if you are looking for that similar atmosphere, I highly recommend this, especially because it is without the homophobia and the transphobia that you will find in her text. I'm also going to recommend Bitter by Akwege Emezi. It follows an artist named Bitter as she decides whether or not to participate in the revolution that is taking place outside of the walls of her academic institution. She wants to bury herself in the sand and focus on joy, but she can't. And Donna Tartt's work will deal with the loss of a parent and with abandonment, and she is a foster kid who is dealing with the trauma of being fostered and having parents that are not in her life. This is a book that I count as dark academia. Black contributions to dark academic fields are ignored because Black people often don't write dark academia the same way that white authors do. But this is a dark story that is academic and focuses a lot on art, and that's dark academia in my opinion, regardless of whether white reviewers think it is or isn't. And I feel the same about Real Life by Brandon Taylor, which also follows a Black queer academic. Real Life is one of my favorite dark academia books. Again, a lot of white reviewers won't consider this dark academia, but it is all about what it means to be Black and gay and fat and a scientist, and how difficult it is to survive being all of those things in academia. This was one of the darkest books that I ever read, and it reflected a lot of my own experience being a Black queer working in the sciences, working in labs. I loved the depiction of lab work in this book. I was often so frustrated reading this book and just experiencing the things that this main character went through with him, but it is one of the most well-written books I have ever read in my entire life. Brandon Taylor writes with the force of 1,000 suns. He is incredible. He is unmatched. This book is 10 times better than anything Donna Tartt has ever written or ever will. Then I'm going to recommend Disorientation, and this is by Elaine Hsieh Chow, or Chu. I'm not sure how to say her name. I'm gonna look it up later. I got this from Joan for Christmas. It was on my wish list and I'm so excited. I have not read it yet, but those of you who are on Bookstagram have seen this book. Everybody has been reading and raving about this book late last year especially, and this note is so cute. It says, "I've loved so much all the stuff y'all have done on y'all's channel and Patreon for us. Y'all make my life so much better. I loved this book. I laughed a lot. It's very dark but so good. I tabbed my copy so much. Enjoy." Another BIPOC contribution to dark academic genres, and I really love like my kind of dark academia. I've spoken about this before and I still am gonna make that video that y'all have been asking me about, but my favorite form of dark academia is BIPOC authors writing about the darknesses that they experience in academic institutions. I care a whole hell of a lot more about that. That is so much more dark academic to me than a murder that takes place at Harvard. And there's this idea that that's the only way dark academia can live and exist, and I just don't subscribe to it. Personally, it's great if y'all do. I do not. And I am just so excited to read this book. Now, the closest recommendation that I have to Donna Tartt's works, if you're one of those people that's like, honestly, Jessie, this is all great, but I want something that is super, super close to Donna Tartt, then I would recommend Babel by R.F. Kuang. I say that really hesitantly because I do not mean to imply in any way, shape, or form that Donna Tartt influenced this work and that this story is in any way similar to the plot of her work. So I know what I just said is contradictory, but I know R.F. Kuang would absolutely agree, like, especially if you know what this book is about, it is legitimately offensive to compare this book or assume that it's similar in any way. I hope what I'm saying makes sense. Those of you who have read it get it. But I guess what I'm just trying to say is it does fit a little bit more into that classic dark academia aesthetic, as well as with the whole there's a murder at the school and you're following a dark group of friends. That's basically what I'm trying to say. So those of you who like your dark academia that way will love this. And it also corrects a lot of the things that I hate seeing in these very popular commercial dark academic books, which they are BIPOC experience exclusive, and if they do include BIPOC characters, it is handled so horribly. But this book, in addition to having a murder at Oxford, is about this group of kids who are kids of color, except for one who is a very privileged girl. It's all about how they react that when they find out that Oxford is using its silver magic to dominate the world and do all of these really unethical things. So it is just an amazing, amazing unpacking of colonialism and complicity and toxic friendships, bonds that are supposed to last a lifetime that often don't. And those of you who have had a friend that you loved more than life itself and had to give up that friend because they weren't giving you the love and support that you deserve, those of you who have had that experience will be destroyed by this book like I was. That is like a part of the reason why I was sobbing my eyes out reading Babel with my patrons in, I think it was November. I'm just so sad. Was because I know what that feels like, to find out that somebody that you love doesn't have your back. Finding out that this friendship can't continue because you won't be able to survive how one-sided it is. Finding out that their love for you is not as limitless as you thought it was. And yeah, I'm sorry, just even thinking about it, I get emotional. I highly recommend Babel. It is 600 pages of wonder and magic, and R.F. Kuang will always hold a space in my heart that takes up volumes. Whew, and then we've got Ender's Game. Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. How do I even begin to describe how messed up of an author Orson Scott Card is? He is like, you know how sometimes authors will just say things that are ignorant, say things that are homotransphobic, and you can at the very least be like, well, there's some space to grow, they're taking steps. No, Orson Scott Card flat out does not like or support queer people or trans people in any way. And when I found out, I just was so confused by the force of his hatred.
Who hurt you?
Why is it this deep? Why is it this serious? So Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card is just deeply beloved. It was one of my favorite books before I found out who he was as a person, which really, really sucked. This is a book that has buzzwords of space, kids in space, politics, war, academia as well. And the replacement recommendation that I have for this book is so spot on. Honestly, I was deeply impressed with myself, like patting myself on the back for coming up with this recommendation. And that is gonna be Do You Dream of Terra 2 by Temi O, who is a Black author. I can't remember if she is a neuroscientist or just a neuroscientist geek, but I absolutely love that this book was written by a Black author. It is queer. The space aspect is so well thought out. It is brilliant. And basically it is about this group of kids who have been trained for a very long time, just like Ender's Game, who have to go on this space exhibition. And it is dark. It is incredible. It is about finding sustainable life, that kind of thing. I just want you to explore it for yourself. The audiobook is awesome, long and chunky and just fun. It is smart. It is emotional. It deals with similar themes as within Babel. I highly, highly recommend it. Then we have Twilight. And I feel like the nerve of me, the absolute nerve of me to be talking about this, because if y'all truly knew how deep of a Twilight stan I was, like back in the day, not anymore, but I don't even want to get into it because it's so embarrassing. But I used to love this book, and of course this is one of the most famous vampiric, werewolf, dark, toxic love stories ever told. And the recommendation that I have for this, I think, is actually really good in being plot similar. And that recommendation is Lead Me Astray by Sandy Warner, again, by a Black author. Like, let's go. Also, let me know if you have recommendations for books by Indigenous authors, because Twilight is also anti-Indigenous, that are a really good replacement for Twilight, or just have vampires and werewolves in them and like a toxic anti-love story, that kind of thing. Lead Me Astray by Sandy Warner is one of my favorite new books. I have been pushing it so hard. It follows a ghost, a werewolf, and an empath as they are on a mission to find out who killed the ghost. It is polyamorous, it is kinky, it is intersex. There's a South Asian werewolf, there's a Black ghost, and there is a Japanese intersex empath. It is so good. I am deeply obsessed. It's funny. everything about it. I've got a reading vlog on this. I did a reading vlog where I read 7 black magical murder mysteries, and I had to solve a mystery as well. That'll be linked down below. In my opinion, that video is so underwatched. I was so proud of it. It took forever to film, so check it out if you are curious and want more black magical murder mystery recommendations. I can't remember if I held these books up, but I'm also going to be recommending Daughter of the Moon Goddess and The Heart of the Sun Warrior for an alternative recommendation to Twilight. And that is because, not at all because the stories are similar, but they are magical. They do have mythological creatures in them, but the biggest reason that I'm recommending it is because there is a love triangle. And if you guys love your toxic, messy, fucked up love triangles, look no further. I'm one of those people that doesn't like love triangles because I don't like love to begin with, and I'm already prepared and accepting the fact that I'm gonna die alone. This is one of like the 2 love triangles that I fuck with. The other one is in Love Boat Taipei, and I low-key love that my favorite love triangles are written by Asian authors, but these books are amazing. They are called the Celestial Kingdom Duology, and they are unfucking missable. They were so hella hyped last year. Well, this one was super hyped last year, or was it the year before that? And I'm telling you, these books live up to the hype. If y'all are not done with me yet, y'all are gonna be so done with this next recommendation, and that is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. I am still going to be talking about this in a video or doing a dedicated video on it. I'm just trying to figure out how to talk about it, because the issues that are present in this book are, I'll figure it out. That's a different thing. I don't even think this book needs an introduction
because it's freaking everywhere.
Disabled people have spoken up about the disability representation and how this book perpetuates the notion, the narrative of the lives of disabled people and their bodies as nothing but pain, tragedy, used for shock value, that kind of thing. I know y'all are gonna be making fun of me for the anti-recommendation that I'm going to be giving, because it is Just by Looking at Him by Ryan O'Connell. And those of you who are looking at me wild are looking at me wild because y'all know that these books could not be further different from each other. But hear me out, just give me a second. Just by Looking at Him was written by the queer man who is behind the Queer Eye TV show. He is a TV writer in Hollywood who is super well known and lives with cerebral palsy. And this book is single-handedly the funniest fucking book I've ever read in my life. It had me bawling with laughter, and part of the reason that I loved it so much. Now, the reason that I'm going to be recommending this book instead of Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow is because I love the way that it dealt with the difficulties of living with a disability, living with cerebral palsy, and also being queer, because Sam of Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow is queer as well. I loved how it dealt with those topics, but definitely counters and pushes back against the disabled tragic narrative, or the idea that you have to have a sad ending at the end of those books. It is amazing. You just have to read it. Y'all, don't steal this idea, but I am going to be doing a video where I give anti-recommendations for A Little Life. So because of that, I am only going to be giving 2 in this video. Those of you who have heard of this book probably already know the criticisms, the same criticisms that are present in Tomorrow x3, that tragic disability narrative, that kind of thing. And because of that, I'm going to be recommending that y'all read these 2 books by Black queer authors instead. Punch Me Up to the Gods is one of the most amazing books I've ever read. For those of you who are like, I'm not a big fan of nonfiction, please trust me. Just fucking trust me, and it's short. So if for some reason you don't like it, you will not have wasted too much of your time. This is a book by a Black gay author who uses Gwendolyn Brooks's We Real Cool poem to kind of talk about different sections of his life. And within this book, it is kind of broken up into chapters where he is talking, writing letters to this little boy that he saw, this little Black boy that he saw, being mishandled by his father on a bus. And he's really impacted by this. But he's also talking about his experience as just being Black and gay, and more importantly, being Black and gay and loving white people, loving white men, being in relationships with white men. It is devastating. It's so fucking devastating. But it is a must read. It is an absolute must read. And I'm not saying read it to just consume Black queer pain. Brian Broom and this story and Black queer memoirs are so much more than that. If you're looking for the kind of books that are as devastating at the end as they are at the beginning and the middle, you gotta read these two books. Here Comes the Sun by Nicole Dennis Benn is by a Black queer Jamaican author, I believe. Yeah, she's Jamaican. I recommend this book just everywhere, all at once. And this is a book basically about Margot, who decides she's tired of being poor. She's overworked and not being promoted at this resort. And she decides to start running a brothel through the resort and making a fuck ton of money. And she is doing this in order to put her younger sister Thandi through med school. But nobody knows that Margot is a lesbian. It's tragic. It is tragic, and it is so much more than that, but it's also one of the saddest books I've ever read. Both of these, one of the saddest books I've ever read. Both of these books are 10 times more sad than A Little Life. Period. Our second to last book is going to be The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is a book that needs no preamble. Some of the buzzwords in this book are sapphic, bisexual actresses, old Hollywood, morally gray characters, villainous characters. And my suggestion for an alternative to this book is going to be The Siren Queen by Nevo. I have not read The Siren Queen, but Nevo is an Asian non-binary author, and I am so excited to be making this recommendation. I forgot to mention that some of the criticisms for Evelyn Hugo, I have 2 videos on Taylor Jenkins Reid, one dedicated to The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, me talking about the many problems. But some of the issues within this work are messed up depiction of Black people, performative white racial allyship, messed up depictions of bisexual people. Those are just some of the issues within the text. Now, The Siren Queen is a really fantastic anti-recommendation because it is sapphic, it is set in old Hollywood, and we are following an ambitious, beautiful young woman who is willing to do anything to get herself into old Hollywood and into these movies, even though she knows that old Hollywood is funded by dark blood magic. Blood magic is a big buzzword for me. The final book that I'm going to be giving you an alternative recommendation, I think I've accidentally been saying anti-recommendation. I meant alternative. The final book is going to be a replacement for The Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin, which the problems with this book just I wouldn't even know to begin. But the buzzwords for this book are war, political fantasies, kingdom, ruling, multi-POV, sweeping epic, really fantastic, heavy world building, mythological beasts, and of course, magic. And my alternative recommendation is going to be none other than Upon a Burning Throne and A Dark Queen Rises by Ashok K. Banker. This is called the Burnt Empire Saga, and these books rocked my freaking world. Again, every fantasy these days is compared to Game of Thrones, but if you are looking for something that has a lot of kingdom politics, a lot of people vying for the throne, a lot of power, if you are looking for something that's got beasts in it and really amazing, powerful, dominant, scheming characters, then you can look no further from these books, and they are by a South Asian author. God, I'm so excited about this. And there also are gods as characters, which is one of my favorite freaking tropes. I love the fight scenes in them. The fight scenes are not prevalent in Upon a Burning Throne, but they are in A Dark Queen Rises. I love that there are non-binary characters introduced in A Dark Queen Rises. Also, I love the font that is used in these books, and just the writing I really loved. Now, some people have critiqued this book for sexism. I personally, and I actually read this book through a lens of intentionally kind of seeking out sexism in the text, just because in my experience, these kinds of sweeping battle for the throne books written by men often have that in there. I didn't see it. Some people said that they felt that women were hypersexualized in this book. I didn't see that. I felt personally that you saw the same treatment between men and women, but I don't want to be one of those reviewers that doesn't share alternate like opinions on these books, because I think you guys deserve to know. Some South Asian reviewers also said that they didn't like the way that this retelling was handled, but some said that they did. So if you want more detail on those criticisms, seek them out on Goodreads. I, being non-South Asian, don't want to say these criticisms wrong or misdepict them, but I do just want to let you guys know. That was a lot. I hope y'all got some good alternative recommendations for these very, very popular, beloved, but ultimately problematic works. You are going to see more of these videos from me. So I do have this series where I talk about books that I love but can't ethically recommend. I'm 2 videos deep in the series, and the next video in it is going to be me talking about books that y'all loved but can't ethically recommend. And the next one is going to be me giving alternative suggestions to the books that I've talked about. So that video is coming. It's going to be similar to this one, but my question for y'all is, what books would you like to see alternative recommendations for? Either because they are problematic or over talked about, that kind of thing. I am also interested in doing a video where I talk about alternative book recommendations to famous dark academic books that are problematic. But that is going to do it for this video. Don't forget that I have changed my socials. It is Jessie on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching. The details on my Patreon are linked down below if y'all are interested and want to check it out and support me in other ways. But otherwise, you can just stalk me on social media. That's good too. Stay safe, be good to yourselves, be good to others, and I can't wait to see you in my next video.